Enter madman, stage left. The audience rises and holds their breath. They let the vampires into their house, pretend they don't see when the teeth come out. Put a band-aid on their throat. No one wants to rock the boat, and no one wants to talk about it. You're not supposed to talk about it. The curtain rises and the players come out. Webs of light spinning from their mouths. Stop looking, listen for a little while. Attention to the men behind the curtain. Just look away when you see the blood spurting down to a steady drip. I promise to leave you a little bit. I'll be back for another drink tomorrow. I love the taste of your terror and your sorrow bathing in your blood. It's never enough. Upon the face of all mankind, our numbers up and the dead coincide. Go along to get along, hypnotized by the siren song. The flames are empty and the crypts are cracking open. The horde's upon you and you stand there frozen, waiting for the word. Stand in line and wait. Don't follow the strings to find out who is pulling. Just drink your poison, keep on laughing and drooling, eating your own flesh. The master always knows what's best. Worldwide genocide. The overlords are hungry parasites. They point the finger and the eagles fly. Raining fire, children die. Starving plague, paralyzed. Pile of bodies rotten, covered in fire. But no one wants to talk about it. I cut my strings, no more bowing to the master. I tried to run, but they only came faster. Now I stand my ground. I ain't backing down. Silver bullets in my pistol, in my holster. My will is strengthened and my confidence is bolstered. Don't test my resolve. Don't test my resolve.
Howdy, folks. Welcome to the Iron Mountain Hour. It is Sunday, March the 19th, almost to the 20th, 2023. My name is Cliff. I'm joined by Tim and Dustin. We're coming to you live from Carter County, Tennessee, and we are here to discuss the reincarnation soul trap tonight. Tim had brought this topic to my attention, that it had been prominent in YouTube over the last few months, and I thought, well, that'd be a fun one to talk about.
Community war going on is what brought my attention to it, because I'm a scumbag. That's usually the only reason I arrive to a community. This is the time the drama happens. But that's not what's important. We don't have to worry about that. We can actually talk about the subject, because I think it's interesting.
Well, we've kind of hinted around at it and nibbled at the edges of it,
Like reincarnation or what?
Well, the soul trap and reincarnation, and the whole Plato's cave theory or allegory, I guess you'd say, and the Matrix theory, and the idea that of basically the Gnostic origin story in a lot of different forms. And there's also the Buddhist reincarnations in Buddhism, and it's pretty prominent around the world, really, as it's a really common story for what happens after you die.
I think, yeah, but I guess the like Gnostic beliefs first of all trigger them for some reason. They don't think it's the same thing.
Trigger the
people that
Prison
are
Planet people.
Well, no, these people specifically that what would be called the Soul Trap community believe that
Sounds like a 2000s new metal band.
doesn't it? Soul Trap.
Soul Trap community.
Soul Trap. Or it's like dubstep, but it's never mind. Or like a trap beat, but it's got like some soul to it. Never mind. I don't know what that would sound like.
I can hear it in my head though.
I can hear it in my head, and
I
it
should do
sounds
that.
like meth. The Soul Trap community takes the idea of reincarnation and they put a very pessimistic look on it. And I'm not saying y'all aren't right. They think that when you die, there are entities waiting on the other side to trick you into essentially doing this all over again because they're benefiting out of it. Like I guess like a Monsters Inc. scenario, like where the human world just lives in this world, basically unnecessarily living in this world just for no reason, just eating ourselves over and over again so these other things can live off of our life while we just keep wasting our time in this matrix. And then, so essentially to cut to the chase, at the end, they're going to appear in whatever form you expect. So if you're a Christian, Jesus shows up and says, go into the light, and you go, yeah, and you pop out the womb on the other side, you got to do it all over again.
Yep.
That's the gist of it, is they're tricking you into doing it.
And
so.
I thought something that made me think of you, Tim, when I was looking into this a little bit, because the whole part of the Soul Trap community believes that there's a contractual obligation or contractual aspect involved.
I think it has to be,
And they remind me a lot of
Blues singers get their stuff going at.
it's where what?
The blues singers get their stuff
Maybe.
At the crossroad.
Yeah.
This go around, I want to be a blues singer.
Yeah.
I want to be famous.
Well, these guys, they kind of remind me of the sovereign citizens a little bit, because they're like, we're contractually obligated, and basically it's a paradigm that you don't have to follow. All these religions are basically contracts that you sign to keep you coming back to this place, and what we have to do is get out of the contracts. And I even saw one guy talking about your last will and testament. You shouldn't have a physical last will and testament. He said you should have a spiritual last will and testament, and that's how you escape this.
Actual paperwork?
Yes, that's what he
more
said.
attachment.
I don't know if he meant actual paperwork, but he said as opposed to.
I wonder when you bring that to your CPA, they're just gonna look at you like the fuck.
I want my soul
Your
to.
CPA worked on Heaven's Gates, but that's still around. One of them stayed behind to run the website after they moved on to the mothership. Story.
But even if it was that simple, though, would you have to get it notarized? I mean, or could you just write a paper that says, I intend for my soul to return to the mothership, as it were, or the source material, or, do you have to have a binding contract? Because apparently that's what, when you are becoming a Christian, you're having a binding contract, a blood contract with Jesus, that, he's going to be your salvation. It's almost like, he's your legal authority, your stand-in. You know what I'm saying? He's almost like your lawyer representing you to heaven.
Well, yeah, they literally, in the New Testament, Jesus is supposed to be a new covenant with an old Mosaic law, so it's like a loophole in the system. I get your point with the sovereign citizen connection as far as the mindset. A lot of them think that we're here voluntarily, which is kind of not the same thing if you got tricked. So that doesn't, you know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. That's not.
Well, that kind of seems to be the divide in the community that I found, is some of them are, and a lot of these videos often start off with people saying, now I know everybody says that this realm is like a school where we're come to learn lessons and be reincarnated. And I've talked about that's kind of the feeling I have on it in some ways, but they'll say, no, that's not the case. If that was the case, why are we forgetting? Why is our memory wiped at each reincarnation? And there's a I don't know if he's famous, but we'll say well known, Robert Morningstar. He was a Hopi and Apache Indian scholar, and he studied their old traditions. And he told of a story where the beginnings of this world, or the beginnings of humanity in this world, there was an entity that existed outside time and space, and it was I guess you'd say in a parallel universe, and there was a race of these beings, and one of them they had found out about Earth, and it had this reputation of being a place where if you went in there, you would never come back. And basically you became super attached to the ground, or super attached to the world. And this person said, no, I'm going to go in and check it out. I won't get attached. I'll be back. And then he was gone for, some years. And then another one of these beings said, well, I'm going to go in and look for him. And then one by one, these beings kept entering themselves into the physical world. And that has a lot, it goes right back to even before Christianity, you have the idea of us being, we're actually souls that have bodies rather than bodies that have souls. That's kind of the way we look at it now. We're kind of more worldly and secular society, and we look at ourselves primarily as a body with a soul inside it, or some kind of driving force inside it. Well, back then especially, people tended to view themselves as souls that had a body. And a lot of this goes, like I said, back pre-Christianity, the idea that the body and the corporal pleasures, hedonistic pleasures that tie you to the earth, are what keep you from achieving spiritual purity and passing on to the next level. And I think that goes into a lot of different religions in a lot of different ways.
Especially Buddhism and Hinduism, yeah. It's the idea that you can't pass on if you're too heavily connected.
Right.
But, I do think, there's, a level there, because, you can take those religions very seriously, and that's what that means, to where you're supposed to let go of everything so you can ascend to the next level, so to speak. And that's how you end up being a guy in India who's held his arm up straight for, 40 years straight, and it's rotted down looking like a toothpick or something. And then you got the other side of it, which is, I guess, would be more Buddhic, which is where they use it. Instead of it meaning that you need to ascend, it's more about realizing that you kind of don't. That you're just supposed to find that middle way and just going about living your life. And so I do think there's degrees. The Soul Trap community is borrowing from a lot of concepts from a lot of different religions and stuff. So, but the reincarnation is the heaviest part of it. And they're really focused on the idea that this is a torture suit and not a body. That the reason this thing feels pain all the time is because this world is designed to hurt you.
Well, that goes right back to the Gnostic tradition, who had the idea that God, or the God of the Bible, I guess Jehovah, or he comes in with a few different names in the Old Testament, but he was actually a demiurge. He was the creator of this world, but there were he was part of a race of archons. Is that what they were called? Where there were these beings that basically lifted our loosh. That was a phrase that hijacked our loosh. That word loosh was brought about by Dr. Robert Monroe of the Monroe Institute. And it was basically the energy that we produce when we're under stress. And like you mentioned, I think you mentioned Monsters, Inc., where basically the whole idea was that these monsters go in and they give children nightmares in the middle of the night, and then when the children are frightened, they produce a certain kind of energy that is then collected to sustain these monsters. And it goes very similar to the idea of adrenochrome harvesting. Adrenochrome is a real thing, but I don't know whether or not it's actually harvested in the manner that the internet,
the effect that they claim it does.
Yeah, I mean, famously in Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas, they say it's the most powerful drug you can take. And what does he say? It's like everything mixed together, basically, or something like that. When he's talking to his lawyer in the hotel room,
he gives him something. It's like 16 hits or something. But I mean, I don't know how.
Yeah, I don't know if that's real or if that's just made up for the movie, or if it built for example, you take Star Wars and you go into the lore of Star Wars, and there's this whole universe that's built in there that most people have no idea about, and you'd have to buy a Star Wars compendium.
About how they use the Force for sex.
Well, there's all kinds of stuff that they do that's not mentioned in the movies, but it's back there in the background somewhere, and people have built this whole story out of these tiny little details in the movie. It often makes you wonder how much of real life is built like that, this tiny little detail, so you make an assumption.
I think a whole lot, actually, but...
Alvin says, harvested by terrorizing a child and then drawing blood from them and extracting it from the drawn blood. Yeah, that's the idea. And it's, like I said, that's very similar to the Monsters, Inc., but these are real-life monsters. And you get into, I don't know if this is still what David Icke thinks or not, but at one point in his career, he was saying that, when these people report that they've been kidnapped by royalty and that they're turning into lizards or whatever, he says, I believe them. He's like, but more than that, they're actually turning into a physical lizard. We're not physical bodies at all. We're just information. So the information that is passed from these people behaving in this manner where they're tying you down and drinking your blood is perceived by the victim as if they were a big giant reptilian monster. Because at that point, you're not actually taking in the information the same way that you normally would with your eyes. You're taking in all the information from the scene, the way they're behaving, the sounds, the smells, all the lights and colors are just totally shocking your system, and you're receiving that pure essence of information of what these people or beings actually are. And so when you look over at them, you see them as a lizard, but really they're not a person, they're not a lizard, they're not anything.
The brakes on that here lately, like because he really back in the day would say he had seen physical changes and stuff, but I guess over the years, like to be taken more seriously in other avenues on the internet, he's kind of stopped talking about the lizard part so much. But Billy Corgan from Smashing Pumpkins claims he's seen the lizard people in the music industry. Like there's a video of him talking about how he wouldn't call them lizard people, he called them shapeshifters. So David Icke's not the only one saying it. It just so happens like you kind of hurt your reputation by being a zany individual. And you decide to be a whistleblower later because then nobody believes you.
And really, Ike was brought the information by other people. So it's not like he just decided, I'm going to go out and start finding lizard people. It was like he had this crazy moment where he realized everything was a lie. The media that he was a part of, he was a former football star, soccer star, and then soccer announcer in the UK in the 80s and in the early 90s. He basically had this revelation where he, decided that the Christ consciousness is in all of us, and it's, and then when he started talking this kind of stuff, he got kicked off the air over in Great Britain. But then he started doing his own kind of thing, and that's when people started bringing him these stories. And I've not really kept up with him in
the one I know you
probably
can find
close to 20 years.
You can find an interview of him actually saying in his own words. He doesn't say lizard person in this one.
Yeah.
He says, I saw a person physically change from one man into another. Mm-hmm. And now, that was like early 80s when he was saying that. So, I mean, like, that's really not too far-fetched nowadays, though. Somebody, you know what I mean? That somebody could do that with some technology that we don't know about.
Oh, for real. And did you ever see that one, that video of the Scorpions bass player where he was talking about he went to a party and they were like, oh yeah, we're gonna go to this party and it's like this, so many thousands of dollars to get in and they're gonna kill somebody and we all gonna watch and
no, I haven't seen that one.
Yeah. He was like, no, I'm not into that. But so people who would pay to go together and see that kind of a thing, they've already got some kind of bad loosh, as you could say, going on anyway, or they're harvesting that maybe they're not capable of expressing the loosh because only human beings, allegedly, are capable of, I don't know, expressing the loosh, or what would you say, producing the loosh?
I totally believe the idea, like, to cut out the spiritual monsters on the other side of the Matrix for just a second, but just talk about wicked people. Like, totally believable that they would have a murder party. Like, you could have that. I mean, like, do you think, like, some of it is just us, like, wanting people that are already wicked to be as evil as possible, or people that have murder parties? Well, they're not just murdering people, they're also drinking the mysterious liquid in the blood to get high and whacked out and have Golden Dawn sex magic parties on the body. Because I kind of feel like that's what we did with Hitler. Like, it wasn't enough for him to commit a genocide. He also had to, like, taking shits on Ava's chest. Like, we have to, like, make them, like, disgusting. Yeah. And I'm wondering how much of this lore of these people isn't because we're just doing that thing that you said, making assumptions. So,
taking a small detail and then making a series of assumptions, and then suddenly you have this whole narrative that
we could bust this right now. Let's scare the shit out of me somehow, and then I'll let you drink my blood. And if you get high, you both owe me $20.
Well, we got to do a control group too, though, because we got to do a non-scared Tim where we just drink your blood.
We can do that right now.
And, yeah,
a couple of scabs.
Yeah.
We got some chats over here to get off the scab topic.
Oh, yeah. Spill said some YouTuber tried it and got bad sick and didn't like it. Said you need to be a certain kind of being to like it. Yeah, and that's part of the that's part of the thing is these, what do you call it? They're supposed to be what, Dracos or Archons, these bloodlines, and that it goes back to the reincarnation too, because this is one of the parts that we touched on before. in a previous episode is these elite, as they call themselves. That's why the interbreeding is so important to them, is because they believe if they interbreed with just the right person, they can predict who they will reincarnate as, and that's how they, keep finding
it's
their
like
way
they
back
make an
into.
agreement, like because they know that you're going to have my next person or something to that extent.
Yeah.
And the only reason they want to keep doing that is because of that whole "it's better to reign in hell" sort of situation. They're already here and they're wicked and they've been here for a long time. So
Well, one of the things that I was reading a lot about in the Manly P. Hall books, and him of the Philosophical Research Society, basically a lot of the secret societies were built to pass this knowledge down to people, and a lot of it was to do with eternal life, and the way that they would live eternally or defeat time would be to reincarnate as in a predictable spot so they can come back with their memory intact and not just reset. So that also makes me want to go on to another one. The Buddhist reincarnation of the lamas in particular, I think they believe everything reincarnates. But do Buddhists, Tim, you probably know better than I do they believe in a non-stop continuous cycle of reincarnation? And,
there's different beliefs. I'm going to butcher these names. It's like Mahayana and Theravada and Zen, and there's a couple other ones. It's just like Christianity, where there was a core teaching where people started altering it for not really, I guess sometimes their own preference, but a lot of times different beliefs. So I don't know. I think there's certain belief systems where it's kind of like Mormonism, where you can like graduate into your own state, where if you're good enough to do down here, eventually you can graduate to like Creator, God, and something. And then a lot of the Buddhist traditions just look at it as you're never going to know what's next, and this is probably just going to keep doing it. So you might as well just the quote they use is you might as well just peel the potatoes instead of worrying about that.
Well, I'll tell you what, the thing that always made the most sense to me intuitively.
What's up, Sean?
Was the idea, and I find this to be in line with both the Christian and the Buddhist theologies, is Alvin mentions proving ground. I'll get your chat in a minute, but the earth is something of like a spiritual purification or proving ground, and part of and one of the big arguments that the soul trap community has is that why in fact would you have all this suffering if you were going to create a world? Why would you create one with all this suffering, disease, hate, all this stuff? And it almost seems like this is a place where we try to wash that out of our system and where we reincarnate. And they say, if there is a lesson, why do you forget it? And I don't think you necessarily forget it. You may not remember the particular events of your previous life.
Like you store it in the epi.
Yeah. And I think you may not remember the particular events of your previous life, but your soul remembers the energy trade-offs and things like this. So I think there is a way that you can learn without having to remember each and everything and all the physical attachments. That's what they're referring to, basically, that you forget. Your memory is wiped of your physical attachments.
So why do you need to remember that you learned that lesson, though? Why wouldn't your next life just be a completely different set of
Well, yeah, that too. Yeah, that too.
Why does, holy hell, my Mario skills aren't transferring to GoldenEye?
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
yeah.
Like, but because you're a good Cliff doesn't mean you'd make a good someone that we don't know. I don't know.
I think to me, a lot of these soul trap people that I've watched, and admittedly, I've heard the idea for a long time, but But as far as actually watching the community, because you started talking to me about the rift in the community, so I started kind of watching them, and
the rift being whether or not this is hell or whether or not this is a proving ground that has less malevolent.
Or they pretty much say that rather than hell, that we are just a slave race here being harvested for our bad energy. So that basically they're saying the people who are in control, the Illuminati, the Watchers, whatever you want to call these bloodlines that have overseen the whole thing for the last 2 millennia or more, that they are basically there to harvest us and feed to their overlords, and that there's some sort of contractual obligation, like you said, between us, the overlords, and the middle management people. Basically, the middle management people, that's why everything we do is under contract law. Here we're tying to their control systems, and then they in turn have an agreement with the higher beings, the archons or the demiurge, or Anunnaki, whatever you want to call them, the Greys, whoever these people are, or these beings, whatever they are, and I wonder about it like this: either okay, if the government can stop us from finding out, basically, if they can keep a lid on the whole alien, whatever it is, phenomenon, interdimensional beings, angels, demons, whatever you want to call these UFOs and the apparent alien beings. If the government can keep a lid on that and stop that information being made public, then doesn't that mean they're either working for those entities or they have an agreement with them in some way or another? Because if the entities wanted to reveal the information, the government wouldn't be able to stop them if they are intergalactic or interdimensional beings.
I think a lot of those people that are on that side think the alien thing is more of a hoax, because they think the harvesters are in the next dimension. And that's the only reason you see them when you die or take heavy doses of psychedelics, is because you have to be so disconnected from your actual physical vessel that you don't connect with it. Your signal has to connect back into that realm where they exist. So you're an entity, but when you wake up in this body, you get tricked. It's almost like you're watching a TV show, but at some point you get convinced that this is you. That's how they do it. And so when you die, you're supposed to just keep going and go, well, that sucked, but they try their whole life, they try all this entire time watching you, try to convince you at the end to hit reset, when instead you're just supposed to go, that sucked, and move on.
Yeah.
So that's the short version.
Right. And again, to me, that whole idea that they give, they seem like the people that I watch seem like bitter people with victim mentalities, and they're basically bringing that into their worldview. That could just be my perception of it, but
depends on which ones you're watching. Well, the ones that think this is like a really bad place, yeah, they seem very angry. I would say that. And
there are plenty of negative experiences, but to say that it's just to define the Earth by especially from the perspective that we're in, as just a place of torture and pain, even in the the most harsh conditions in the world, there's moments of love and beauty between people. And who's to decide? Maybe we just decided when we came here that was why we were coming here, is because for all the moments of pain and sadness, there's so many, there's beauty and there's love that can only be experienced in this realm too. So to paint it as black and white is just, well, this place is just so horrible.
It's very polarizing.
Yeah.
And I'm not even saying they're wrong. My view tends to be more on, I don't even know what religion it rolls into, but if we're going to do the, afterlife thing, I think this is probably, I do think this is more of a voluntary thing. I feel like, it's just a hunch, that maybe this started out fun, and now it's like a game that got away from us. We did so many adventures. So imagine if you have a virtual reality machine that lets you really get in there, you really get to lose yourself. But you've always got this little thing over here to remind you, floating in your hub menu to the corner of your eye, this ain't real, And then it's kind of like, what if we got so bored of saving princesses and shooting terrorists that we decided to forget we were in there? That's kind of like what I think is kind of going on. We're playing the most dangerous game, and I think we've kind of let it get away from us because we're not really enjoying ourselves anymore. Then again, that could just be our perspective. There could be a lot of people really having a good time. Bullfrogs look pretty happy. Just saying. Bullfrog simulator. Maybe this whole world has to exist because this is actually a bullfrog simulator.
Maybe that's the only way you get bullfrogs.
It's balance.
Alvin says, yeah, he says, what are
goats always have fun.
Yeah, that's true.
They just don't care about anything.
Been
They
Goats
just
on the
have fun.
Roof. You ever heard of that? I'll tell you about that show. It's Goats on the Roof. Google it. It's really weird. It's a little tiny restaurant / putt-putt amusement park thing for kids, but the whole roof is just covered in live goats for some reason. Anyway. South Carolina, I think.
Alvin says the metaphor of Monsters Inc. is spot on the reality. So much for family programming. And he also says, well said, Spill, you can't just mix that adrenochrome in a drink and chug it down.
Who says I can't? Let's do it, boys. We'll go base
Gotta get
jumping.
the-
Are you an Archon?
What's the chemistry, Alvin? What do we have to do to make my veins worth millions?
Or Alvin said Project Monarch made use of it extensively back in the 1970s when I was at the Proving Grounds. Project Monarch.
What's the I?
I guess when he was.
Oh, you were at the proving grounds. Are you our agent, Alvin? Are you watching Cliff?
And Monarch was one of the mind control programmings that they were said to have used on people like Marilyn Monroe and a lot of the
They claim that it's Dolly
yeah.
because she uses a
She
butterfly.
used the butterfly for her main thing, yeah. And that's the old school programming, so they've probably got a lot more advanced versions. Actually, I know they do. One is called TikTok. If you think about how, as far as affecting a generation and a whole society, that's got to be one of the best ways to do it, because you put entertainment in there that gets passed along quickly, and the entertainment that is popular, people seek to emulate, so they will become popular. So especially if you can control the algorithm to decide which video people see and what becomes popular, you can do a lot to really affect the way people look at reality and affect the way they behave. And it's almost like you're mentioning the video game setup. What you're making me think of was like a timeshare setup. Like the first trip to Earth was like, your free vacation where to go stay in the resort for a few days, and all you got to do is sit through a 30-minute presentation. But then they sign you on for the timeshare.
You get to be Elvis in the first life, but then you got to be like a janitor for like 2 or 3
You got to come back and back.
Now
and
you
back.
got to build a railroad.
And you can never get out of the contract, and it keeps no matter, even when you die, you're coming back. It's almost like those cooking gadget clubs.
And once you're the dude in World War II Russia that just has the ammo.
Yeah, the guy who runs behind the guy with the rifle.
And then sometimes you get to be Cocaine Bear.
Yeah.
Ooh, okay.
Do you know about that story? Okay.
This made me think
Not all
of
bad then.
No, that's what Cliff's trying to say. If sometimes, and that's, I don't know, that's kind of like the Eastern philosophy way of looking at it.
And
sometimes you get to be Cocaine Bear, and sometimes you get to be, I don't know.
and perhaps to give
Bag
kind of
lady.
the worst example, perhaps in your last life you were a millionaire who was cold and rude, and you didn't look at poor people as human, and maybe you actively exploited the poor. So maybe in your next life, when people ask why would you be born into a life of child slavery, maybe that has something to do with it. And that's not to say that child slaves deserve to be where they are. I'm just saying,
What if you were
if the world operated in that
PDF file? You know what I'm saying? Like, well, if that's the reason you're saying.
if the world operated in that manner, there would have to be some sort of
I mean, it'd
punishment.
be like we'll be able to figure out the math then. Be like, how many PDF files out there are there?
Yeah.
Any child saying, like, it feels like you could do like the math and see if it all equals out to a giant karma dharma system, and could we break the system if everybody just became POSs overnight? But like the
There'd
whole
be nobody-
system comes
yeah.
slamming to a halt.
Yeah, it could be. Yeah, maybe that's what they're trying to do, because isn't that what the elite have always wanted to do, is basically end the world so they can basically reign over the chaos?
I think it's supposed to be like a balance, like to make us always think it's always the end. That way they can
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
and then, because the whole time, our economy's going up and down, theirs isn't doing anything.
Alvin
They're not the
says,
same yachts.
Jimmy says, angels and demons are what I think, in my opinion, parallel dimensions. Well, it could all be, it could all be the same thing, could all be different. It's hard to really know. But these stories of reincarnation and sky gods and stuff like this, they go way back. If you go back to ancient Greece in particular, these gods had a lot more of the characteristics that we would think of as beings that would be likely to construct a universe such as the one that, these prison planet soul trap communities say that we're living in, than something like, a loving Father of Christ, or, in the gods of the modern Abrahamic religions. I guess the Jehovah and the Yahweh, those were kind of seen by the Gnostics as what the demiurges themselves, rather than the actual creator of the universe. They're just the creator of this realm, and that goes back to...
That's why they hate us, and Gnosticism is because we're like a tiny chunk of the creator of the whole.
That's right, yeah.
So they're kind of doing all this bad shit to us, just as kind of, haha, now that we can't. It's kind of like when pop culture. It's when Simba wanders into the hyena's den. And that's the first time they're actually able to be assholes to him because Mufasa's not around. Mm-hmm. So there you go. We're tiny little lions, and they're picking on us because as soon as we get out of here, we're going to kick their asses. I don't know if that's true or not, but it sounds fun.
Alvin said it was the pioneering work for the dual personality generation in children and young adults. It was the chemical bridge between the dissociative personality disorder resulting from trauma or SRA. Yeah, and that's, I started to say it's a whole other, can of worms, but it's kind of tied into it really. He's talking about the SRA and the Monarch programming and the way they basically disassociated these children in particular. That was the who they've mainly focused on, disassociating their soul from their body by inflicting pain and trauma on them. It's pretty awful if you get into Fritz Springmeier.
You could definitely do it with their their actual consciousness. I don't have to be their soul, but
their consciousness, yes, break their brain. But again, psychology is kind of the study of the soul, which nowadays we look at it as the study of the mind, and say that it's just neural impulses and things like this. But some, the old tradition was that the soul actually animated the mind. But the conditioning that they did to these people was so horrific. Just as an example, in the book Fritz Springmeier wrote called I can't remember what it was, the creation of an indetectable mind-controlled total slave or something like this. It's kind of a long title. It was written by Fritz Springmeier in I think like 1987, and he goes into with this in this book. He had a programmer who basically had left the dark side, as it were, and explained to him how a lot of this ritualistic torture was done. And it was done similarly to the summoning rituals that we talked about, whereas basically we're not actually summoning a physical demon. We are summoning an energy within to our mind and our brain by using certain symbols for our brains for our eyes to focus on, certain smells for our mind, certain pulsating strobe patterns, musics. All of our senses are activated in a certain way to produce this result. And they kind of did the same thing with these kids, and they would do things like put them in a cage that was spinning and electrified and play loud heavy metal music and have strobe lights and have the smell of burning sulfur. And like these kids were, put through this. And basically they would have a handler that would come in and run all this stuff, and they would break the child's brain by having the handler come in to save them from the torture, and then the handler would continue the torture. And it was at that point they would create this break in their brain, and they could actually steer the personalities that they're created in these people.
It's like the way the dissociation is, it's very simple and very complex at the same time once you understand how the impulses work. What you do, don't get any ideas. Anybody in the military, because the military's already doing it. You people at home, don't torture nobody.
The Manchurian Candidate was old technology when it came out in 1956 or 61.
The idea is to ritualistically, the word, that's where it comes in. That's why I think it's satanic, because it doesn't have to be. You put someone through consistent horrific events to where they know it's going to happen again, because eventually their brain learns. It's almost like a Pavlovian response. It learns, here comes this nonsense again, and it changes you into a sort of like a neutral gear to where you flick out. You're still there, but you go distant. And that's one of the problems with dissociation, is people later in life start forgetting those events even happened, because that's part of the dissociation. The brain takes all that really awful stuff and puts it in the corner of your brain and just says, well, let's never think about that again.
Yeah.
But the problem with that is now you have all these, and this isn't even like CIA stuff. This is stuff they know for a fact actually happens with people. So later on in life, you don't know all this stuff happens, and so people start having issues as far as like triggers, like real ones, to where they literally can't control themselves, and they don't know why, and it's because they don't know what the source of that behavior is to begin with. So it's a real thing.
And when he talks about the dissociation, when you dissociate and your actual self goes back into your brain to hide, and the autopilot self that comes out, these autopilot selves can be programmed according to this book and according to other brainwashing information I've read, you can actually create, when these multiple personalities are created, you can actually use them, like mold them like clay. So for example, Kathy O'Brien is one of the more famous victims of this, and she's never been sued, and she's named names for everybody that she's talked about for like 30 some years. So, believe her or not, her story has stayed consistent. She's named names, and she's never been sued once. But Alvin mentions in the chat here that mostly done by willing parents. That's the sad part. Kathy her father was abusing her, and according to her story, he was abusing her and making illicit video materials of it and selling it to people. Well, he got caught, and when he got caught, the agent said, listen, if you don't want to get busted for this, you need to turn your daughter over to this program, and we're going to do this, and this for her. So he did, and basically sold her into this. And that was where she claimed that she later became the property of Gerald Ford while he was a congressman, and then was basically passed around among the political elite for a number of years. And she started telling her stories in the late 80s, and I think that was around the time that Fritz Springmeier wrote his book, and he talked with one of the programmers. But Kathy was what was called a monarch program, or not a monarch, but a beta program. So they were different, a Delta would have been like an assassin, an Alpha would have been like a political operative, and a Beta would have been a sex slave operative, basically a James Bond girl, where basically she's going and she is either transferring information that they can't pass along other channels. She can be told and basically created with a photographic memory. And she can be shown a document, she can recall it and tell it to somebody else hypnotically without ever knowing that it's going on. And, whether this really happens or not, I don't know. But a lot of this stuff, it all creates the bad loosh that we're talking about here. So in the process of maintaining control over the world, if this is actually what they're doing, they're also creating all this loosh that their overlords lust after, too.
I think the most common broken top would just be the entertainer, though. Because you can actually even take all the hoodoo out of it. And take the idea that if you break someone enough and then you make them into an entertainer, I don't even know what the description behind it is. That there is a direct link to trauma and high creativity, and it's because the idea that if you spend a lot of time in the back of your head and you're not out here, you get better at that creative world. And so it's the idea that if you can torture the absolute shit out of Michael Jackson and his brothers, these kids are going to make some really good music. And that sounds dark. But once you start looking at the suicide rate with some of these musicians, it's like, I don't know. And then even with that, like the ones that are killing themselves with drugs to escape from reality, it's just the same. So I do think there's some connection there.
Yeah,
I could see that, because some of my favorite music is made by some of the most people that have had some very tormented and bad things happen to them.
And it ends up being a lot of times it's a path that can easily lead to self-destruction when you start down the entertainment road if you're not in good control of your faculties, especially emotionally. And if you've got a lot of trauma, there's a lot of ways that you can.
That's what they do to actors, I do think.
A lot of ways you can hide from that trauma with using substances or just fame in general, and other means of getting dopamine, and then one day it doesn't work anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Now, let's see here. Alvin says, as a handler, it is your job to help them embrace the suck and disassociate with the trauma and embrace the new behavior. Yeah, it's a whole big thing. The book, I read it probably 15 years ago. I think it's called The Illuminati Formula for Creating an Undetectable Total Mind Controlled Slave. It's like this freaking thick. It's one of the biggest nonfiction books I've ever read all the way through. But whether it's true or not, I don't know. But if it is a fantasy, the guy sure went through a lot of details to making sure everything was consistent with his, and then Kathy O'Brien's stories. Kind of everything lines up between those. So who knows? Maybe they're in it together, but definitely seems like they're onto something. But to get back onto the reincarnation talk. We started talking about the Buddhism, and we talked about how the Illuminati have the idea of controlling bloodlines and making pacts so that they control where they go during reincarnation. But the Buddhists also they have a whole system for divining where these lamas, there's the whole system of lamas where they're going to be reincarnated, and they'll track them
llama
down.
Simulator, that's what we got going
Well,
on.
you've seen The King of the Hill, right? Where they think Ted Wasonasong's son is a llama.
Yeah.
And then Bobby they pick him as the llama. Well, that's actually based on the way these Buddhist ceremonies really work. And I think that it's probably based on, that episode's probably based on a documentary that I watched earlier today. In the movie they call it Songklog, Lama Songklog, but on here it's like Changklog, something like that. It's very, very close to how they say it on the King of the Hill episode. But they do the same test basically, where they have a bowl, have a blanket with a bunch of artifacts or items on, and the child who they suspect may be the Buddha or maybe the Lama, they bring the child to this blanket with lots of personal effects of different people laid out on it, and the child is supposed to naturally gravitate towards the items that were owned by the Lama in the previous life. And if it picks like 3 in a row that were owned by the Lama, they say, okay, we found the Lama. And then they take the kid and they say, hey kid, you're very important, let's teach you all about Buddhism, and you're going to be a new spiritual leader. And so basically they recognize the mind wipe, and they say, okay, we're going to catch you back up to where you were when you died last time. So this is all that you were working on, and then you died. This is where you need to start back.
I wonder if they count like personal stuff, like if you had a really good pie recipe, like you really like to make this pie, so we're gonna have to show you how to do this.
Well, maybe so.
Personal.
You almost had it, man. We figured it out while you were dead. The missing ingredient was allspice. You just need a little pinch of allspice, and then you'll have this pie just the way you wanted
You're
it.
sitting there looking at a big pile of graphic novels, and you're like, you guys sure like DC? I feel like I like Marvel.
I want hentai. Oh, God.
I like having a strain attracting cephalopods.
Bryce Taylor also was in the program, Album says. I'm not sure who else Bryce Taylor is. He said, as I said, it will take the goodwill of a young patriotic soldier and sicken him at what his government is doing to its people for whatever reason. Fracturing the mind, Spill says. That's right. And we knew what you meant, Spill. And some don't know, Alvin, what we know or hear. And can you trust what we know or hear? Because, our senses can be deceived. We've already seen that in several episodes where we've talked about did I have bad breath?
No, there's a piece of dust trying to go in my eye.
Our senses can be deceived, and things, we talked about the LED arrays that can make you puke. We talked about beams that can energy waves that can beam words into your mind, or now even talking pictures into your mind and scanning brains and reading your thoughts, or trying to being able to form a picture based on what your brain waves are doing. So.
And why, when they want to use torture, why do they always use metal?
They don't.
But it's always stereotypically, they're always like, oh, they use that. I'm like, that would be one thing that'd probably be able to keep me through some of it.
There's actually a list of the music they use, and I can tell you that Cold by Matchbox 20 is actually the number 2 song. The number 1 was, I think, like Cowboys from Hell by Pantera, which is just scary to like a tribal person from Afghanistan's why. But I don't know why Cold by Matchbox 20 wrecked people so hard.
I thought it was Smooth, like Santana Smooth, and there was the Barney song. They would use that one over and over again.
That would make sense.
But any song, though, if you hear it on repeat, you're gonna go crazy. What was now I can't think of it. There was a movie that I watched. It started off with a song playing, and it turned out they were torturing somebody, and I can't remember but it was. Oh no! It was an episode of The Walking Dead. They had a guy in jail.
It's Easy Street.
Yeah, that was it.
Mm-hmm. They were trying to break Daryl.
Yeah, that's what it was.
I'm like, that would probably a song like that would be more apt to, I feel, break someone than
50s
heavy
music. Yeah, it's bad
Except for
50s music is out of key in a lot of spots because they didn't tune it. Yeah, I'm telling you, that'd be the way to get me.
I will tell you, if you want to get me with the metal song, play The Last Stand by Sabaton over and over again. I'll be so tired of it because I've probably heard that song more than any song in the history of metal. And it used to be anytime when I used to have XM satellite radio or Sirius satellite radio, anytime when I'd get in the car and turn on liquid metal, at some point they were going to play The Last Stand by Sabaton. Yeah, you could about guarantee it. And usually, like, I'd go to work and I'd turn on the radio, it'd be The Last Stand. I'd get in the work and come home, it'd be The Last Stand again.
It'd be Life's Been Good by Joe Walsh for me. It's the most irritating song ever written. The tone in it, the whole song is just irritating. But anyway, I don't know why. I just hate it. I hate Life's Been Good by Joe Walsh. I'm sorry.
Friday by Rebecca Black says Honey Pie.
That's kind of supposed to be bad. Most people like Joe Walsh, though, and I'm sitting there going, I hate that song. Yeah. Like, why do you hate Joe Walsh? Well, Life's Been Good, so I hate it. I guys can't do it.
Dido.
Which
My
one?
tears don't fall, I'm wondering why. That would be a Groundhog Day nightmare. If you
I
had
can
to hear
see
that when you woke up every
because
day.
it's the same.
It's the song's the same anyway.
Yeah, you just change the lyrics.
Yeah, and it just rolls through, and then you're basically repeating. The song is a repetition of itself to begin with.
What would be a good one, Golf? Take it over.
I'll tell you one. Candy Shop by 50 Cent. If I had to listen to that on
He
repeat.
shot by 50 Cent.
I'll take you to the candy shop. I'll let you lick the lollipop. Elvira says Alvin. Yeah, I can see that.
Yeah, that would be pretty bad.
Yeah, dude. Now, what was the? There was a guy who went to hell. He says, and a lot of this is based on near-death experience.
I think the song has to be unintentionally bad, though, because it'd be really easy to pick the Trashman and pick Surfing Bird. Because I can tell you, I almost quit at Food City one morning. I walked in, that song just blaring over the radio. I had 4 bins of ice cream. I was like, I'm going to quit. I can't do it. And luckily, it was the end of the song. And somebody walked up there and changed the radio station to something else. And I was like, I was done. I was like, I'm leaving right now because this is a cosmically cruel joke that I have to listen to Surfing Bird at 4 a.m. It's 5 degrees outside, even colder inside, and I have stock ice cream.
Okay, I got to read you this. This one was from January of this year. There was a pastor in Texas.
Sorry, go ahead. That's funny.
He died.
Sure, they weren't partying.
No, listen, he died. He says, and he went to hell, and he heard demons torturing sinners with Rihanna's song "Umbrella." Now, there used to be a video on YouTube. It's long since been removed by a man named Lennon Honor. Now, he still has a YouTube channel, but it's nowhere near what it used to be. He used to go into Disney movies and pop music, and he would break these videos apart. And the one he watched about, the one he did with "Umbrella" for Rihanna, I'm telling you, if you could find Lennon Honor "Umbrella" somewhere, watch that video. It's very interesting because he shows basically the way that demonic imagery is inserted into this seemingly nice song, and also there's like chant. It's like some other language, like the Ella,
Elohim or something.
Well, that's part of it, yeah. And then there's he does another song where he's talking about it's another Brianna song, but it's like bum bum be dum dum bum be dum bum, and
Disturbia.
Yeah, that's it. So he does 2 breakdowns of those, and like he shows all these like hidden demon faces in there, all this.
I think I've seen the Disturbia one
language.
because Disturbia is kind of like the metaphor being demon possessed or something. I think is the case he kind of makes.
Well, this guy says that he went to hell and heard demons torturing sinners with Rihanna's "Umbrella," and that they were also reciting lyrics to Bob Marley and Jasmine Sullivan tunes. Now, here's the point that gets me.
3 Little Birds sounds like a sun worshiping song to me, but go ahead.
The one that gets me the most, "Don't Worry, Be Happy." He said, "Don't worry, be happy," was going on playing in hell. A TikTok pastor says that before Rihanna landed her gig as a Super Bowl 2023 halftime show performer, the pop star was headlining in the depths of hell. Gerald Johnson, a religious figure and leader of the Gerald A. Johnson Ministries in Texas, this is according to EntertainmentWeekly.com, shared a video on the social media site regarding a 2016 journey to Satan's playground, which occurred after his spirit left his body and traveled to the center of the earth. That's where hell is, he said. There, he was treated to the perks of the fiery abyss, including what can only be described as a performance art piece involving a man burned from the head to toe being dog-walked by a demon holding a chain. Then, pardon the pun, all hell broke loose. It still baffles me to this day. There's a section in hell where music was playing. It was the same music that we hear on earth, but opposed to entertainers singing it, the demons were singing it. It was some of the same lyrics we have here, adding that today's musical acts do drugs to explore their craft. They can often open a portal to hell so that demons can whisper lyrics that will allow Satan to control humans. Here is music to get over a breakup. Don't worry, be happy. I bust the windows out of your car or under my umbrella or whatever, he continued, referencing song by Bob Marley, Jasmine Sullivan, and of course
Don't Worry, Be
Rihanna's
Happy's
2000.
not Bob Marley.
No, that's oh shit. Who is that? I can't think of it.
He's a real famous sessions
Is
musician. He just had that
Ben
one
or-
hit.
yeah.
Don't worry.
Bobby McFerrin,
Bobby
yeah.
McFerrin, yeah.
So, but anyway, he's saying "Don't worry, be happy," and then hell. So I guess they're thinking that's Bob
I
Marley.
will say it's like I don't like that song,
Which one?
Umbrella.
Oh, well,
I was like, but it was just like I think Hell would be able to create something a little better than that.
Well, Lennon Honor goes into the
Considering, if what you think, how many people that are good musicians that are there, and that's the best they came up with.
well,
I think it's more the idea that he would, well, because first of all, I think he's full. I don't believe him, but because I think that'd be comical. Because I hear like Ella, like demons out there twerking, but they're not like sexy devil chicks. They look like things off of Doom. Like they're all horrid. Like it's like if you made a mod to make House of the Dead creatures dance. And
reminds me of Hell in South Park.
but I mean, I can see the idea of
Christmas time in
playing.
Hell. You remember that?
I could see the idea of playing music that you would typically enjoy while something awful's going on
Yeah.
to torture you. But I don't know. I mean, I just think a pastor probably picked the top 40 because it seems like he was picking some pretty.
Well, that was from 2007, though. I mean,
But I mean, that's those songs.
yeah.
I mean, that's when those songs came out. If he told me that in 2007, if he told me that they were playing something from 2014 and he predicted it, that would amaze me and I would believe it.
Well, this is from 2023, and he said they were playing something from 2007. So,
Okay, well.
but either way, yeah,
Standard. Sorry, guys.
yeah. Well, the Umbrella song, though, if you go into Lennon Honor's explanation of it, he's talking about more of this contractual stuff. What is an umbrella when it comes to contract? It's an umbrella
Irish
corporation.
creator.
Yeah, that too. But basically, it's an umbrella corporation. Like you've got this person under the top of it, and everything under the umbrella is still under the control of this corporation. And basically, Honor is saying that this song is basically Rihanna being a minister for the devil and saying you can stand under my umbrella and I'm under Satan's umbrella or whatever. But you'd have to definitely check out his video because I think it's about a half hour long, if you can even find it anymore. It's probably not on his YouTube. Let's see here. What else we got for tonight? I do... let's check up the chats and see if anybody else has anything about the soul trap phenomenon, anything they want to add, and then I'm going to go into the Tweetsie Railroad.
Do you
Little
think
local
this
lore
is
for everybody.
hell, or do you think this is a learning ground? Like, or we're here to, or less of that for me, honestly. I think, or is it more than likely, we're don't stone me, Christians, sorry, or even Muslims who want to stone me. What if we're just receptacles? This is just like a webcam, and we're all just God split up into different individual ones, and this is just a big game because we wanted to have people to play with because it's funner.
Yeah.
And then we decided, well, let's pretend like let's forget that we're God, so it's scarier that way.
Yeah.
So
Well, I think you might be onto something there, and it's kind of like, where I come in on it is kind of like we as humanity, all our souls are part of the same essence, which is what you may call God, you may call love.
Brahma.
But when we come into this world, we're like mycella, like God's the mycella, basically, under the ground that the mushroom comes out of. It's all connected. It's all part of the same being, but yet we're all expressed as individual mushrooms. And while we're individual mushrooms, we're exposed to the earth and the air, and birds may eat us, bad things may happen to us, but at the end of the day, what we really are is not the mushroom, is what we're connected to, which is the mycella. And that may be a way of experiencing this world. Like you said, we may just be we all are part of God, but we want to experience individuality, so we're popping into human bodies where we're separated from all that. And it could could be that we are the creator ourselves, or we are the creations of the creator experiencing the creator subjectively.
well, it's the idea that, and this is just, I guess this would help with the personal preference on which one you're going to pick. But it gets rid of the severity of pain. I guess because you start to accept that if you were voluntarily here, that you did this to yourself, and that this is all a big thing that you're doing. Then you kind of come to an understanding that maybe all the pain and stuff isn't personal because you're doing it to yourself. That's kind of how. I don't know. That's kind of how one way of looking at it. I don't know. I think that's kind of like a C.S. Lewis wrote a whole book on the problem of pain, where he basically just sidestepped around the whole subject for like a short pamphlet about why God allowed pain to exist. But I mean, like, the easiest example would be to be a Buddhist about it and just say, there's a balance. If you want to have really cool stuff and you want to be Michael Phelps winning gold medals, you also have to be an earthworm being eaten by a bird. And on that level, if you look at it as, oh, I'm also an earthworm, but I also get to be this, So that's the way of looking at it, is it balances out on the Akashic level.
And
pretentious.
And to experience joy and to know true joy, you have to in some way have experienced pain. If you're pure joy all the time, you're in heaven. You may not even realize that it is joy. I mean, ignorance is bliss. Well, then bliss is ignorance, and maybe you don't want to be ignorant all the time. Maybe there's a lot of reasons that we may choose to come in here, and I don't think we'll know them until we die. But if we avoid the soul trap, we might learn them. But apparently,
It's a soul trap, man.
we should make
Demons
a.
dancing.
It makes me think of a movie that Snoop Dogg would make.
No, it would be.
The soul plane.
It would have to have that dude that was like, he's like an open demon guy in the rap community. I can't remember who his name is now, but he would have to be in it. There's like a whole group of people that are like embracing the demon side of it, and it's like, I see that it's the new satanic panic, but it does come across. Now that I'm an adult, it really does come across as pretty incredibly cringe.
I find it cringy, to be honest. Like, I still really like a lot of the album by Behemoth the Satanist, really killer metal album. But I feel really cheesy if I'm in public and like he's like, "Hail Satan!" or something. Yeah, it is kind of cringy, but that was a great album.
Yeah.
Let's see here.
Probably not who I was talking about.
But I do one of my favorite parts of that album, Dustin, is where I don't know what the hell he's talking about, but it sounds like he's calling forth demons from hell and they're flying out, and he's listing off the names of these different demons. And
Asmodeus.
Yeah, that's one of them.
Abaddon. Mm-hmm. I think it's Azrael, if I'm not mistaken.
Yep, that's one too. And then he goes through all the
bring
names.
something back from the dead by doing like some kind of a chant on accident.
Yeah, you're
That's
probably.
like the black candle by mistake.
Let's see.
You pulling out. Oh, he's got his Necronomicon.
Let's see if we can read these here.
No, thank you.
The
I
fifth
read
gate
it cover
of
to cover,
Murder.
and none of it makes sense.
You're not reading it with the right eyes.
Read it with my brown one.
And
you might not want that anymore. You might want to, after you realize I've put my ass on every page trying to read
Pooped
it.
on it a lot.
Why can't I understand it? I'm reading it with my third eye.
Look, I'm just trying to get the cat's eye view.
I keep getting pink eye every time I touch this Necronomicon.
You summon the pink eye demon. Or maybe it's,
No, that's the demons from Doom, the pinkies. That's
There
what
it
they are.
is.
That's how you do it. That's
Poop covered Necronomicon gives birth to the poop pinkies.
the pinkies.
well, maybe that whole Surfing Bird, you've seen John Waters' Pink Flamingos, and Honey Pie says she saw it. It was terrifying. And Alvin says Codex Gigas. and Spill is taking him back at him, I guess.
Hey, that's Aleister Crowley. I'm just using his theory.
You know what? Maybe, we're talking about how the Illuminati, they will, control their bloodlines to control where they reincarnate. You're talking about how, the Buddhists have a system for finding the lamas so they reincarnate. Maybe that was what Crowley's whole idea was with the brown eye. That's not. Crowley says that the third eye that we talk about, and that the eye, the all-seeing eye, the Masonic symbolism, is not actually your crown chakra.
It's the chocolate starfish.
It's the chocolate chakra. It's the root
anal
chakra,
chocolate starfish.
and apparently it is of a minor, according to Crowley. So maybe that's how they think.
Because, the spirit world has preferences.
What do you think? Maybe they are trying to be reincarnated as the spawn of the child that they abused, by doing this? I don't know.
Or maybe
I don't know. I think
using the third eye, as we'll say. They gotta make the sigils with poop crayons. That's what they're not doing.
Maybe
possible.
That's why you didn't get it.
base chakra.
That would be the one.
Oh, I thought that was the root chakra. Let's
the
see.
root chakra makes contact with the base chakra.
No, that's your sacroiliac.
That's the real term, isn't it?
What?
Like, there's actually a real sacroiliac.
Yeah.
It's like a little tailbone or something.
Yeah.
Is that right?
Let's see here. 13 royal families of the United States. Yeah, the presidents are all related. They're all connected to these 13 bloodlines. You know, maybe they really did. You know,
Figure it out.
yeah.
Man, I don't know.
I mean, if you study this stuff, just let's look at the knowledge we have of astronomy, of, you know, think how many thousands of years it took to be able to figure out something like the precession of the equinoxes, that the wobble to the Earth, you know, that's what causes the stars to shift in the sky. So think how much observation and recording of data had to happen for that to come together. They've been working on other stuff too. The selective breeding, for one. Just look at a dog. We can take a dog and turn it from a wolf into a chihuahua with, you know, what a few thousand years.
Does it make it better, though? I mean, I know it makes it more interesting for human purposes, but I mean, like if the world ended tomorrow, dogs would basically have to revert back to that because they're useless outside of that. Like, most breeds are too agreeable to live in nature or not fit for it.
Yeah.
Like, Dachshunds are just, I mean, what the hell they're going to do with these new stumpy things.
Yeah.
But, like, have you seen the Habsburg jaw? You know, oh, you have not? Okay, like all the inbreeding, so I don't know, you could say this is just some of the exceptions of it, but some of the families got so obsessed with the inbreeding.
The Habsburg.
Yeah, and the inbreeding started making them not only, they said some of the family members were overly emotional because their brains weren't developed correctly, and some of them had physical deformations that made their jaw stick way far out, and that was the most notable thing. And it's because, you know, they said there was super amount of inbreeding going on. They said the very last Habsburg had like tons of physical deformations. Like one of his shoulders was messed up. He couldn't breed. I know this is gross, but they said upon autopsying the dead body when he finally died, he did not possess testicles, but two dried up raisin things in his sack or something. So I don't know why they cut his balls open, but apparently inbreeding eventually messes you up so bad you become infertile. He couldn't have kids.
Well, that was the story supposedly of Jack the Ripper, who was actually Prince Edward of the royal family, who was born developmentally disabled and deaf, and he knocked up a hooker, and you know that hooker could have been one of the people in line to the throne, so she had to be killed before the baby could be born, and all her friends who knew about it had to be killed too. And that seems to be the most likely thing that happened there.
Make it up.
And I think they've known the truth about that in a lot of places for a long time, because I think From Hell was the first movie that really put that idea out there, that it was the royals covering up for him. But that idea is not a new idea at all.
I wonder how many other serial killers have had similar origins stories.
Dawson's perfectly engineered to root out groundhogs and other tunnelers.
Not the new ones aren't. Like I know what you're talking about. The old school Dachshund, if you look at the typical Dachshund, it has these little scoopy pads, but over the last, I would say, I don't know, bullshit amount of time, a couple of decades, some of the newer ones have gotten too short. Their pads have gotten...
They've bred them for shortness and longness and cuteness.
And the pads have gotten so puffy that their paws get irritated, so they lean on them. Like, they've gone a little too far with some of the new ones in the last couple of decades. But yeah, they were badger hounds.
They start breeding. Start breeding them for dog shows, and that's where you. That's why I like with Jack Russell Terriers. They don't even have. They just recently started putting them in like the Westminster Kennel shows because the Jack Russell Terrier Association or Jack Russell Terrier Club, they actually have their own breed standards, and it's not based on bloodline, it's based on characteristics. So you can breed different hounds other than Jack Russell and come up with a Jack Russell. Yeah. And it's not based on prominence of bloodline. But I was going to say, man, my dogs, I've got 3 half-breed working dogs. I've got one that's half red heeler. I've got one that's half border collie, and I've got one that's half Jack Russell. And I'm telling you what, if those dogs were full-blooded working dogs, they would have no trouble finding their way, because these things they're a lot of work to get them to behave. And if they don't have a job to do, they just have so much energy, and they're like I said, if real working dogs, they would be fine in a no human apocalypse.
Certain
not
ones,
apocalypse,
yeah, and like Alvin was saying, the Dachshunds are, yes, those Dachshunds would be fine, but I'm saying like some of the more, I guess maybe it's Americanized ones.
domesticated.
Yeah, one of our Dachshunds died recently, and so we bought another dog, and it's a Doodle, which is a golden retriever and a poodle mixed together, and they're not recognized by anything, I don't think, either, but they've done them enough now to where people like the breed enough to where they're becoming popular. And the whole reason for it is it's a poodle, so it's very smart, so it's going to be easily trained, but it's also a golden retriever, so it's like high energy and stuff. But I know this sounds awful. I couldn't hug my Dachshunds because they got these little like cactus porcupine hairs, and every spot that you touch, it would leave like little pin pokes, and it would swell up, and then the dermatologist swear up and down and have a dog allergy. But I'm allergic to damn Dachshunds, by God. Even their spit would make my hands break out red. But I could sleep on a bed of golden doodle fleeces. These things are the most hypoallergenic thing. I can roll my face in these things. It's like rolling your head in a human hair. It's wild.
Poodles are awesome, dude. My dad had when he died, he had a poodle that was like
Some pro breeding.
It was 16, 17-year-old, not a toy poodle, but miniature, like this tall poodle.
Medium.
That thing, that's probably one of the smartest dogs I've ever seen. It could understand, I don't know how many words of English, but anything you'd tell it to do, it would do. And it understood things like, my dad would say, "Oh, I'm going to leave you here." And it'd be like, "No!" Run after him. And, but you could swear the thing was...
I think it's probably case by case, because the dog we had as a child, it's like he was a half. His dad was like more in that type of poodle.
Yeah.
And he was like, I guess he was only a quarter of it, genetics, but he was
not very bright.
Yeah. He liked to eat couches indoors. He was, yeah.
Poodles were originally hunting dogs before the breeders got a hold of them. That's right, Alvin. They're actually really good retriever dogs.
Very smart.
Yeah, they're like they still use them a lot for duck hunting. They can be trained to run and grab the duck and not eat it and bring it back to you. And they're very fast and very good swimmers.
Mm-hmm. And smart, super smart. Do you know the poodle cut? Like, I know they started doing like vanity stuff with them later on. Like he said, when the breeders got a hold of them,
so they can get in water.
That and another thing I thought was absolutely fantastic, because the lighter ones, like the white colored ones, where their hair is so like wool-ish, it absorbs all the colors. So if they don't just cut the hair up, it absorbs like cut grass, mud, everything like that. The whole paw, like it just goes up. Like you can Google image poodle with grass stains. It's all like it just looks like straight. It looks like a fake Christmas tree going up the length of the poodle's arms, and it has something to do with the just the texture of that hair. And so they're just like, well, let's just cut it up here, and we don't have to keep giving this guy a bath.
Let's find a poodle with grass stains here.
Yeah. They just soak it up. So yeah,
I'm pulling it up, guys. You'll see what we're laughing at.
Super muddy paws. Sounds a little extreme, but yeah.
I think he's running through the yard after a mowing.
You seen a lady in the water?
The mode.
Yeah, it's been a long
This
time.
would be like if somebody did a school play version of it and they didn't have the budget to do that grass creature properly.
It's like, does anyone have a white poodle?
No, we got this mutt we can roll in grass. Like this.
Here we go. Zilker Park is turning dogs green.
That's what they were talking about, was the, well, not necessarily Zilker Park, but...
Pet owner's question
all
that
dogs.
is. Yeah, that was from 7 years ago.
They're like dying the grass or something.
Well, listen, if you haven't already, go follow us on Rumble. We got everything up on our YouTube channel has been transferred over to Rumble, so you should be able to catch all our videos there. And just share that Rumble channel to anybody that you know that watches us. And if you want to share the YouTube with anybody, let us know. We'll see if this video will stay up, because we've kind of hit some taboo topics for YouTube. But I think unless we mention them in certain ways that I think we avoided. We're okay as long as we don't get reported by somebody. So don't report us and we'll be good. But I want to tell you now about the East Tennessee and Western North Carolina Railroad, also known as the Tweetsie Railroad. We talked about the Tweetsie Trail before here in our area of Carter County, Tennessee, and it's a connection. It's a trail that the local governments got together and made between Johnson City and Tennessee for people to ride bicycles on, and it goes along the old Tweetsie Railroad, East Tennessee. Sorry, Dustin, you all right? East Tennessee, Western North Carolina Railroad, and you used to be able to take a ride on the Tweetsie Railroad. I don't know if you still can or not. Can you? Still take a ride on the Tweetsie Railroad?
I don't know.
Their amusement park in Blown Rock, North Carolina.
Well, I don't know.
It's temporarily closed.
There was
so-
somebody that was trying to turn all those places up in there into a recreation of Jerusalem. I wanted to say it was Maggie Valley, but then the plans fell through.
So yeah, this was they'll be open in April 23. The Tweetsie Railroad theme park, where you can go in and ride one of the original Tweetsie Railroad lines, and they got like a 3-mile loop that you go on around the park there. But
It's fun. I've not been there since high school. But
yeah,
I've not been there since.
oh, I need to take my youngin.
So young, I don't remember anything except for the dude dressed up as an Indian giving me a mohawk, like a tomahawk, that was basically a stick with a rubber doohickey on the end of it. And he goes, "Here you go, youngin." And that's literally the only thing I remember about that day, except later on. I remember somebody pushing my moccasin onto my shoe going, I hate it, because I couldn't think to say there's a rock in my shoe because I didn't know how to say that or something. And then they're going, "They're cute," and I was like, "Ah!" And then that's all I remember about Tweetsie Railroad was putting on a painful set of moccasins and a guy dressed as a native giving me a tomahawk.
Did y'all ever get to go to Ghost Town in the Sky, Maggie Valley? I never got to go to that, man. I always wanted to go ride that big swing thing. And
I like the Red Devil roller coaster that they have.
they got a new roller coaster at Dollywood. It's Bear or something.
Cocaine Bear.
They should, because Cocaine Bear is a Tennessee treasure.
You know what movie I want to see? I want to see Killdozer. Because right now, a lot of this stuff is old internet lore that they're turning into YouTube, that then is now becoming Netflix. That's going to go on to movies. I want to see somebody do a good Killdozer movie. If y'all don't know what that is, I'm not going to tell the story. Just look up
I'd say our viewers know
Killdozer.
what
There's
it
a
is.
couple of people that'll tell you what it is, but it's a pretty fun story.
So basically blend like Falling Down with Bob the Builder.
Yeah, kind of. Yeah,
Well, let's get about to the Tweetsie Railroad here.
with a little John Wick in there.
Yeah, true. Talk about
Buffalo
it.
shop instead of a dog. Sorry, go ahead. That was voluntary.
That's all right. The Tweetsie Railroad. It was a unique narrow gauge railroad originating from Johnson City and went to Boone, North Carolina, which is what 65 miles away. Dubbed the railway with the heart, the railroad personnel were known to do shopping for mountain residents of Roan Mountain or Elk Park while in Johnson City, and often to carry passengers for free during the Great Depression. As we're going that way anyway, come along and ride. And they had a heart-shaped punch that signified the spirit and service provided to the railway through generations of Appalachian residents. It was nicknamed the Tweetsie for the shrill whistle, because you could hear it coming through the mountains from miles away. And now get this, it was also called East Tennessee and Western North Carolina Railroad, right? ETWNC. It was also called Eat Taters and Wear No Clothes. I like it.
That.
Yeah. It ran from 1882 to 1950, and it was the
Make
main
a party where we actually go back to the old school for the railroad.
That's right. And
We all busk naked and eat taters.
it was the main way that these
That sounds
people,
like a good time for me. I'm in love with some potatoes.
because Johnson City was the main trading outpost around here. Johnson's Depots that started out, Blue Plum it was also called, and it was basically a town, Johnson City was, that sprung up among the railroad intersections, railroad crossings from what's now, what was the East Tennessee and Western North Carolina, and what was the other one? What was the other railroad it crossed with?
Bungleheart. The Bungleheart Railroad Service.
Well, I can't remember. It crossed with another railroad there in Johnson City. But the main thing we're looking at is the Tweetsie, which
It
went.
was Reading, I'm pretty sure.
Was it? There really was a Reading Railroad. I think it was more like whatever Norfolk Southern is now. I think I ran into that. I don't know what that was.
Yeah, it was a Hank.
You got your gun on you, Dustin? In case that was
There were bullets.
in case that's a chainsaw murderer there here. But the railroad here was the main way that people in like Boone, North Carolina, and Cranberry, which is up in Roe Mountain, which we need to talk about the Cranberry Mining Company sometime, because that's an interesting story. It was a corporate town that set up there. They set up what was it, iron mining, or was it lead mining? I think it was iron.
I think it was iron.
There's iron up Stony Creek, so it would be close.
So there was lots of good minerals: lead, iron, manganese, magnesium around here. But I think the iron is Cranberry Iron and Coal Company. So they did iron and coal. But they were basically a corporation in Roan Mountain that set up a town for the workers to live in. They set up a school. You can still go up to the Cranberry School and play bingo on like Sunday nights or something like that. But my kids, let's see, their grandfather on their mother's side, or their step grandfather on their mother's side, he went to Cranberry High School, so I need to talk to him about that. And also my brother's wife, she wrote a big research paper on the Cranberry Corporation because she grew up there. She wrote it up there for like her senior year in high school. So I've asked her if she ever comes across that to let me have it, and she said she thinks she knows where it might be. So I thought that might be cool because I have a hard time finding a lot of information on it. But she did it years ago with locals helping her out, who had access to maybe information that is not necessarily on the internet.
Elvis says we need to have hobo shoestring.
Hobo shoestring.
And Spill says that poodles can be not nice, especially the
That is
large
true.
ones.
Yeah, they can.
Well, I'm going to make
can
sure
be
mine
aggressive.
is nice.
The doodles are usually the Labradoodles are usually pretty nice.
This
They
one
have the-
is super, super agreeable, probably to the point that it wouldn't bite an invader, but I'm going to have to try to train it to do that. So,
Well, the train, it used to go up just to Cranberry to transport iron back and forth between Johnson City and trade to the people up there. And then they extended it up in 1919 to go to Boone, North Carolina. And, was the Lost Cove was on that? It was on that rail line because the Lost Cove is a town. It was a ghost town in Irwin. That's the other rail line that it crossed with, was the one that the Lost Cove was on. Because this town totally dried up. I forget what the name of it was. I've actually been to it. There's the school. Part of the schoolhouse is still standing, but almost every other building is gone. And there's a few rusted out husks of cars.
Yeah, that's
you can Google image it on, you can find it on Google Image now on Satellite, because there's a dude I used to work with named Dale. What's up, Dale? Who a lot of those places out in the middle of nowhere, he's the guy that gets Google Images for it, and they started like, I don't know, I didn't know this, maybe you knew this, but apparently if you do a lot of that, like if you take a lot of pictures and keep submitting it to Google, eventually they'll start sending you stuff to beta test, and they apparently started sending him cameras and stuff to test out since he's going out in the middle of nowhere. Like
Yeah, I need to get back into that because I was doing a lot of that before.
I did
when
a
I
little,
was
I've done a little bit of it, but it's been a while too.
Well, when we were playing music, man, I would go and I would take pictures of different places and upload it, and leave reviews for places and stuff, and they were all the time sending me ideas for stuff, but not sending me physical stuff. So that'd be
You
cool.
can see a lot of the venues we played. When you look them up, you can see us.
Yeah, that's right. Because B actually posted and B has I forget how many millions of views her pictures have on Google. She's got.
I only got one on Google, and it has 200 interactions, and it's just a picture of the park down by the baseball field behind Pals. And I was literally just taking a picture one day. I don't know what I did. I think I was bored. I was at a kid's birthday party, and I was like, I'll upload it to Google. Because I had like a note that popped up when I put it up there, and it said, Google recognizes this image. Would you like to help other viewers out by knowing? Well, I was like, yeah, sure. Blah, blah, blah. And people keep, every now and then I go into, it's literally the only image I've ever put on there on the maps and stuff. And I just think it's funny that people have commented on that picture so much. Because it's like, it's just a park.
Okay, it was so you had all this traffic going back and forth by rail because there was really no way, the roads weren't up to transporting that kind of load from Johnson City, and then you had the Rayon and the Bensburg and North American Rayon. It was I think that's where Steve Grindstaff comes from, is the Glanstoff or Kransdorf rayon plants that were started around the early 1900s here, and it was a big driver of the economy here in Elizabethton, and they transported a lot of that stuff on the railway too. But they've got this train sitting down at the Chamber of Commerce in Elizabeth, and you can go and look at one of the original engines on the Tweetsie Railroad. Let me pull this picture up here.
Masonic 12 there.
And this is down at the Chamber of Commerce Park there in Elizabeth, and you can go down and check that out. And or you can go up to Tweetsie Railroad and ride one of the old steam engines. But they did shut down the railroad in 1950, and I thought it was a neat time to bring it back because they're talking about bringing passenger rail back to Bristol, Tennessee, or Bristol, Virginia, which would connect to other parts of Virginia like Norfolk and Washington, D.C., the Amtrak network there, and they're wanting to expand that. And, if that happens there, I can imagine they would expand it further on through Tennessee if they've already got a hub there. They've already got the track in a lot of places. So I wouldn't be surprised to see more of that coming back, especially,
High-speed rail.
well, as they're trying to cut us off from being able to travel by car. I think that's one of the ways that they're going to do it is by setting up high-speed rail where you only have a limited number of destinations. Alvin says Hobo's based out of JC and he knows all the train lines in a big chunk of the U.S. Hey, that would be a good guy to have on there, Hobo Shoestring.
I used to know a homeless dude. I say that the nicest way possible because he was voluntarily homeless. Mm-hmm. He was a street poet / rapper who, when I first met him, called himself Crazy P, and then later he started calling himself Fire Dog. And the only reason I remember that is because he started living with the homeless people down there. He was a really interesting dude. Like, he was literally living with all these homeless people down here because he was trying to figure out, like, all the different walks of life. So he was choosing to be around he was telling me these stories about, like, the different kinds of prostitutes and, drunks and stuff that live down there. But he was telling me how all these people were all using these different networks of like, basically underground tubes and stuff that are under Johnson City that just normal people don't know about. But there's like so many hobos and stuff that know about them that, they all just kind of interact underneath underneath that area. I always thought that was real interesting. He said they're left over from the Prohibition days.
There's a commemorative penny from the Thomas E. Matson Masonic chapter. Now we know what this ring means, huh? From 1890, Thomas E. Matson chapter, Royal, what is it? Royal something Mason. I thought it was Free and Associated
Royal
Mason.
ass Mason.
And then here we got...
What's this, a torch and a hammer, or what is that? See what I'm saying? It's upside down, but I can't imagine that being anything but a torch.
Or an axe.
Or it's a pig.
Or a gavel.
Like a guitar pick.
Or it's a guitar, it's a golf tee.
Could be.
The Scottish are
Pretty
getting
important.
golf, yeah.
Old Tubal cane.
Here's Party Point here, and a postcard from the East Tennessee and Western North Carolina Railroad. That is, now this went on up through where the Tweetsie Trail is, and then there's a big train tunnel in Hampton, Tennessee that you can still see today. They're about to go, they're not going to ruin the tunnel, but they are going to destroy the old bridge and put a new one in here.
That makes me sad because I like those bridges.
I know, I do too. I like that they're falling apart. Mm-hmm. I like that if you take a wrong step, you'll go right through them.
Especially the one on the heading towards town side, because that one, it's like, there's trees growing on it. It's been reclaimed.
Yeah.
There's that one part of it that's stupidly sketchy. And don't get caught on the other side of it because people own that part of the property now. And
Oh, really?
you'll get, like, blasted all over the internet.
I didn't know that.
Don't ask me how I know that.
Where's the picture
Where
of
they
that
post
bridge
you.
at?
Yeah.
These people are on our property. Is that what they're doing? Because I kind of wouldn't care. Go out there with like an advertise. Go out there and take like local businesses. I got a great way to get to hundreds of people.
Here's the old
But
bridge here.
that one's perfectly fine.
How far up's that one?
That's
That's
right off the
literally
road.
right off the highway.
Takes you about a minute to walk down to it, but you can't really see it from this photo, but there's big chunks of the bridge missing.
Well, they've got it blocked off where you're not supposed to. People still park there, but you're not supposed to.
Well, they've got a gate, but people park there and walk down.
People fish down there all the time, so that's why they're like, they can't come.
And then
But they're going to tear that one down.
yeah, they're gonna. I don't know if I think they're going to reuse the support pillars.
Okay. Well, I guess they kind of have to get those federal grants and stuff, though, since they're going to turn that into the Tweetsie Trail.
That's the
correct?
the Hampton train tunnel right there. Yeah. And one time when I was about I don't know,
It's really neat.
19, 20 years old, I and a bunch of friends of mine went up in that train tunnel and we camped out, and we had a couple of tarps stretched across because it was really windy. It's not winter, but it was like spring maybe, and we were like, we can't wait to go camping. So
You
we
have
went
to
up
huddle
there.
up close because it was cold.
Well, we woke up. We drank a lot of liquor, Old Heaven Hill.
I know where this is going.
Drank a lot of 100 proof Old Heaven Hill, and had a big fire raging and partied all night. And we had those two tarps on either side of our camp to try to stop the wind whipping through, and it did help to a degree. But then we woke up in the morning, there was a foot of snow on top of us inside the tunnel. We came out, and there was probably foot and a half of snow on the ground outside. And then all of a sudden, like I said, we just grabbed our stuff and left. We left the tents up there. Like, we're going to come back and, left the tarps, left the sleeping bags, coolers, just grabbed what we needed and got out of there. Said, we'll come back and get it later. Well, the next day, everything had melted by the next day. I mean, it was sunny. All the snow was gone.
Tennessee snow.
Yeah, and it just came and went. And we went back to get our stuff. When we got there, we started smelling like, man, I smell weed. Like, I do too. So we all started sniffing, and we're like, there's got to be some weed growing around here somewhere for us to smell it that strong. And so we started walking around and trying to follow our nose, and we ended up over on the part where you were talking about. And it got stronger and stronger, and couldn't find anything. And we were about to leave. Like, I guess we're not going to find it. And then I found the source of the weed. Do you know what the smell was? It was a dead turtle. Shit you not. It did not smell like weed when you got close to it. It smelled awful. But
I can believe that, dude. I can believe that.
that's what we thought. That's what we thought. I guess the snow maybe killed it, but no, it would have been dead longer than
Dead
that to start
turtle.
thinking. But yeah, that's what it was. The smell that we tracked down for a half a day there.
A less dramatic version was we walked around produce trying to find a thing that reeked of weed, and it turned out to be a case of pumelos.
I don't know if
For
that
some,
is.
it's a giant grapefruit looking thing, but kind of green. And apparently, when you have a 40-pound box of them, they kind of have a weedy smell.
Ah.
I know on the other side, the more degraded bridge, when
Yeah.
you go across it, there's still like remnants of like a rail station.
Yeah, I was trying to find that.
It is neat. That's
So
why I hate
those
that
people own it then?
Yeah, that pisses me off because it's so neat. Because you see because when you get to the other part, you'll see basically like a platform where the rail would have been. And you can see like a little staircase that would go up to
So is there
a
like
loading area.
like a Facebook page that these people are blasting people on, or what?
They were doing it on their own personal one.
They have their own personal Facebook page?
Like, yeah.
So if I make a QR code that will take people to the Iron Mountain Hours YouTube page, will you just walk out there,
Walk
with
out
the
there and
camera
hold it up.
and just hold it out and then go back out, because then they'll post it?
That's great.
Maybe.
I'll go with
If
you.
they still do it, I don't even know.
I'll go with you.
It just seems like an odd thing. Like, it seems like you want to keep records for just trespassers, but like that's not really something you can shame people for, because like how many people don't know that that's personal property?
And there's
No signs that say no trespassing.
The way that I went in, the sign was gone. Because if you go under the double bridges and cut up that way, there's no sign.
Yeah, that's the way I went. I never saw a sign that way. I've been up there a lot. But after you go, while you're on the Tweetsie Trail, you might stop by the Roan Mountain Inn. This is the Roan Mountain Inn from 1910. Doesn't that look gorgeous? And then we got that big old... Spill says I'll be out in public and be like, I smell weed, and realize it's me. I smell it all the time in public now, and then like sometimes it's a skunk, but usually,
Well, a lot of times it's just because you can buy that stuff at the gas station.
Yeah.
Everybody's just toking it everywhere you go, because I mean, what are they gonna do? You bought it at the gas station.
Yep.
And it smells just like the real. And then there's a large amount of people using CBD, and I thought that stuff would just kind of like be the introductory level to like legal weed, but there's a lot of people using that stuff. Otherwise, there wouldn't be so many of those stores around here.
Yeah. There's another picture of the Roan Mountain Inn.
Oh, that's weird. Or long.
See, that's the kind of hotel I want to stay in.
One with no AC.
Yes. When you don't need AC. Roan Mountain Inn, you just leave your two windows open, have that Roan Mountain breeze flow through there.
Yeah, I could see at certain times of year it wouldn't need it.
But listen, I appreciate y'all joining us. That's the Tweetsie Railroad, or East Tennessee and Western North Carolina, eat taters and wear no clothes track. And that was a big driver in the economic development of the area we grew up in here in Carter County, Tennessee. And thought I'd share that with y'all. And if you're local, you probably know a little bit about it. But it's always fun to talk about this kind of stuff. And there's a lot more interesting local things that we can talk about. If y'all want to check this out, if you're from the area, go to stateoffranklin.net. And there's all kinds of good stuff on there. A history from our area. This is the cover. This is a promo for the railroad company, the Linville River Railway. It was another branch that they added on to it for passenger rail after they'd been running it for a while for freight. And show you the depot here of the old Tweetsie Railroad back in the 1880. I think this is a picture from 1890, actually.
Do you know what part of the Tweetsie Railroad is over on Doe River Gorge? Because I know they've got some old train cars that they've converted into like bunkhouses for their people to stay in when they're
Yeah, if you follow that train trail, the train track through the tunnel and then go under the old train went under the highway, I guess, or, it's not, the highway is over where the train race used to go, but it does go on back up there through the gorge, and the train tracks go on. Seems like I remember, maybe I'm having a false memory here, but it seems like I remember once you walk out so far on those train tracks, there's like a bridge that they cross across the river there at the gorge, and you can actually kind of tightrope across them still and get out there, or am I making that up in my brain?
There is that bridge. I'm pretty sure the one you're.
Been a long time since I've been there.
But I don't know. I don't know if they'll still let you.
I don't think they let you, but I think we did it. Now I could be having like a false memory syndrome, but it would have been like 30-some years ago. So,
especially back then, you probably could get it. I don't know about now.
The first time I remember going out there was in like Boy Scouts, and I was probably like 11 years old. So, but yeah, stateoffranklin.net has a whole lot of this info on it, and it a lot of interesting photos, a lot of, especially around the Johnson City area and the state of Franklin, and all that came from that. And here is, well, where'd it go? That's not what I clicked on. The Cy Crumley scrapbook, it's on this page. If you go down and check it out, he's got a mock-up of everything in Johnson City, and he's got pictures of his model showing what it actually looked like, with mock photo, or models of the town, and everything made as realistic as he could back to what it would have looked like in the day.
Elk Park still, or is it Elk Park?
Elk River Falls.
Elk Park still looks pretty weird. It's just not in a very good state if you go to the downtown area. But the buildings still look pretty crazy.
There's Elk River Falls. It says safer to watch than attempt. That's a 40-foot drop. It's pretty fun to jump off of. Pretty safe as far as
It's one of the only
giant
waterfalls I
waterfalls.
would jump off of around here. Most of them you're met with broken ankles.
Yep. But that's it for us tonight, folks. I hope you enjoyed looking at some of our local history with us and our local town, and I hope you enjoyed talking with us about the soul trap and reincarnation and whether or not we live on a prison planet. I tend to think that that we do choose to be here in one way or another, and I don't know that. I don't believe that, but that's what I think. And I don't think that anybody is tricking me into being contractually obligated to repeat myself. I think I'm probably learning and growing each time. And I think we come out of, intuition, instinct. Some of these things may be memories that we don't know are memories. It's a school, you think too, huh? Spill says. I love those old pics too, Honey Pie. But if you're in our area, Honey Pie, it could be a game too.
Well, I mean, like, because a lot of these words that we're using are from our own perspective as humans. Like, even like our perception of what is gross. Things that are gross to us aren't gross to a slug, for example. So I mean, like, I don't know. I don't really know how to have the words for it. It's like, I really think that. I think it's a Buddhist phrase when they say, if you are your foot, you're also the sun. And as dumb as that sounds, it's like there's tons of things that are inside of you right now eating the food that you give it so they can stay alive. They don't realize that they're keeping this larger ecosystem going. the candidas that eat the sugar in your stomach are eating the sugar because they want that sugar and they're trying to stay alive. And so it's kind of like on this one level is chaos, is perfect order. On another one, I think that turtles all the way down thing.
Well, that reminds me of I think it was Rick and Morty episode. And this is an old thing, and again, this goes back to kind of the Matrix and Plato's cave. It's just a different version of it. But in his version of the story, Rick has a car that never runs out of energy, and the way he runs
the battery.
The battery has a little microverse in it where these other little beings live, and Rick shrinks himself down and goes into this microverse and helps them develop a power system where the things that they step on, it uses their footsteps to create energy, and it gives them enough energy to power their technological world. And then Rick then siphons off the excess energy to run his car. And they think he's God, and they're giving up basically their energy to God, and basically they're just running his car. So we may be in something more like that too, where we're a power plant like the Matrix, or again, the allegory of the cave is, the whole idea that we're watching these shadows outside move, but that's not what we're really looking at. We're just looking at shadows. And then the thing, the Sims, the Sims video games, we could be versions of that. But in the allegory of the cave, a lot of people, even though it literally says the allegory of the cave, a lot of people kind of look at the more literal way of thinking of it, and really it's talking about your mind. That's the allegory, is where's what's going on in your mind versus outside. And what do those shadows signify? How do you get out to where you can actually escape the cave and see what's actually happening, not just the shadows? But listen, it's 20 minutes to midnight, so we're going to go ahead and hop off here tonight. I think we had a good discussion. You guys got anything else you want to add? Any more chats?
That Iron Maiden song.
Which one?
You're like 20 minutes to midnight.
Oh, 20 minutes now. Okay. Hey, we're closer to, what they say, we're like a minute to midnight now. Let's see here. Oh, I missed a couple of things. Let's see here. Spiel said she could be a school, but she's torn. Alvin says he opts for a game and we broke the rules and now it's all out of control. Yep. And definitions to words can change. Yeah, we got hackers in this game, so we have to deal with them however we can. And what was now gay in the 40s is happy, and now gay is something else. And yeah, that's true. We can all talk a lot, Spiel. Okay, guys, thank you. Appreciate you joining us. Let us know, Honey Pie, are you in our area? I'm not sure where you're from, Honey Pie, so I'd love to hear if you'll comment on the video or throw it in the chat there if you can. I'd like to know where we're talking to everybody from. Alvin's local, and Sean is soon to be semi-local, and Spill's out there with Sean on the West Coast right now. But yeah, it'd be cool to know. Appreciate y'all getting with us tonight, and we will be back on Wednesday. We're going to talk news and current events,
California.
You're in California too. All right, Cutting Honey Pie. Thanks for letting us know. So we got a West Coast trio out there tonight. So appreciate y'all joining us. We're going to get back for news and current events on Wednesday. It's going to be a good time. We are going to do next Sunday. I think it's going to be next Sunday, as long as I can have a chance to get everything together. But if not, we'll do something else, and we're going to be working on this. But we are going to work on the solutions-based show to all of these problems that we're bringing on. What kind of solutions can we have? What kind of ideas can we have to pull together as a community, as humanity, to lessen our dependence on control systems that enslave us, that basically give us what we want and make life easier, but at the same time tie us down. And it's like the soul trap, except it's a body trap. There's kind of a body trap here for us. How do we escape the body trap? What are the keys for that? How do we stop them from putting it in place? And how do we not need it? The beast system. So we'll get back into the news and current events on Wednesday, and we're going to try to stop being so doom and gloom. I don't think we're really doom and gloom, but downer on some of these stuff that, we're showing you these problems, and we're not really, we're saying at the end of the show, well, connect with your community.
With that.
Yeah, connect with your community so you don't need all this. But we're going to have a show where we talk about how we actually do that. So that'll be very soon, if not next week. And start your own Agora. I have the blueprint. Yep, Agora.
Yep, and remember, it's not gay if you just do it once.
Good night, y'all.